So if I may take this first.
Yes.
Just to put things into perspective, the world, the global world, and Ghana has gone through various periods of financial turmoil. The reason why this one is different compared to, let's say, financial depression in 2008, which was generated because of financial malfeasance, if I can put it that way. This is a problem that is generated because it's a healthcare crisis. So the solution is healthcare based. Why are the markets not flowing? If people are afraid to go out and buy, you can open your economy and nothing is going to turn. So we need a healthcare solution. So back to your question, testing has been a big deal. The countries that did testing early and appropriately were able to identify pockets of risk and were able to contain or mitigate or test and trace and then isolate. Those who started doing testing late, the cat was already out of the ban. Ghana, from where I am right now, seems to have done very well, barging samples together so that they can get more out of every test that they do. But there is one slight danger, and it's what I want to alert us all on. The government has been very good at telling the people how many cases is on today and how many cases is next week, the number of deaths, and they've been doing a very good job. So I think some complacency has set in. We are waiting for the government to tell us what is happening. I think the government has done what they can. There is no cure for this virus. At a neck-breaking speed, doctors and researchers across the world are exchanging information. We know more about this coronavirus now than we knew a month ago, but there's still no cure. It's now not in the hands of governments. It's in the hands of individual people to stop the spread of this virus. And as was earlier on alluded to, we can't be waiting for testing and isolation, because if they test and isolate, some will be missed and a disease can still spread. So I think we have to try to, every way we can, stir our memories again that this is a serious pandemic that is ongoing. We can't rely or expect the government to stop the spread of this virus, that it now behooves us as individuals to do our part. Because of course, there are over 30 million of us, and we have the power to really slow this down. You can't stop it, but you can slow it down.
Thank you, Dr. Professor Dr. James, what is your thoughts on this question?
The testing, I think I just try to go back to my experience in Germany and the UK regarding how and the pace at which governments went on to start testing individuals, and talk about that in comparison to Ghana. I mean, Germany, of course, were quite advanced in that. So Professor Drosten in Berlin, actually, he devised primers, which they use for the PCR to test, because he's been working on the SARS virus for a very long time. So, and the facilities are here, the PCR machines for testing, infrastructure, bioinformatics, great. The UK were very complacent. They started very slow, considering they had all the tools, but managing effective screening was very slow. So in that respect, if you look at Ghana, with the resources we have in Ghana, I think they did very well. Yeah, starting off where it's been mentioned, yeah, so the pooled samples to be able to increase the capacity, but of course one has to be cautious about that. So of course you can screen and you can test. Contact tracing is very important, you should do that. By the end of the day, at least at the DNA level, so testing actually, at that point, you can test, but it's not curing. It gives you some idea of the rate of infection, which is good, but it's not going to change the status of the disease. But we don't have a cure. We can manage it. And I think the next level of testing, okay, it's okay to test to see if someone has been infected, right? Which is good. But then you have those who are, walking around, probably don't have the symptoms, so asymptomatic, but they are also positive. Okay, so you might not test these people. Okay. The other point also is to mention that to see if someone has been infected and if their immune system has been strong enough for them to survive and their body to develop antibodies against the virus, to neutralize the virus, so that they can again fight further infections. That's still a debate if it's possible. Okay, but this is the natural progression. So there's where the antibody test is coming into play, which is very problematic. A lot of these tests initially came out from China, places like that, to the UK, to Germany, and they failed miserably. Because with this particular virus, somehow, unlike other viruses, let's say the flu, the viral titer, the levels of the virus is so low. So if you have the antibody testing kit, the ELISA approach, and the sensitivity is very crucial. So a lot of these testing kits actually did not work. And in Germany, I have not been able to get myself tested at the antibody level because I'm not frontline. So you just can't go and get tested. Definitely not. All right, you're not there. I mean, Roche has produced a lot of these ELISA testing kits, right? So this is an issue. And I think for Ghana, we're not there yet testing the antibody level, which is very interesting to see, because then you can actually know in the population what percentage are actually immune. And the more immune people you have, of course, then it's better for the containment of the disease. And I think, again, what is happening now, we're seeing with the uplifting of the lockdown, we've seen increased numbers, a bit worrying. But again, as I mentioned earlier as well, you know, the government cannot enforce. You can tell people to stay, be careful, protect yourselves. But if they don't, you just cannot do anything at all about that. And I look at it more, going back to Charles Darwin, you know, it's survival of the fittest, it's natural selection. So basically you go out there, you're infecting yourselves. Some will survive. I mean, those who take precaution, they have a better chance. Of course, those who are fit, stronger will. But I see this as what they call herd immunity. So like it's happening in Germany. People are out now thinking that it's gone. It's because more people have been infected, more people are immune. So the chance of being infected is, in Germany now, I think it's 1 in 1,000, 1,500. So the probability of being infected is low. And I think we have not hit that yet in Ghana. But of course, economy has to be rebooted. So people have to go out, people have to go to work, businesses have to open. Yeah, so you cannot. At the end of the day, it boils down to the individual to really be careful, protect, follow the rules, regulations as they know. And like in Germany, for instance, the restaurants are open. But if you go to a restaurant, you have to give in your full details, your address, your contact details. So if anyone within that restaurant gets infected, they can come back. And if you don't, it's an offense. Okay? So the restaurant owner will get into trouble. And I think there are cases where people are putting silly names, for instance. They trace them. So it's very, very important that even if you open bars and restaurants, you do your best. Bars might be difficult, definitely restaurants, that whoever comes in, you get their details. So if an infection breaks out, you can go back. Another point happened in Germany when they lifted the lockdown. A church close to Frankfurt, I think there were between 50 and 70 people got infected from one church, as an example, from relaxing the lockdown. So basically it will happen, but individuals have to be very careful. And in first to Ghana, I think it's got to a point where I feel, I wouldn't say nature has to take its course, but the government cannot do any more than what it's doing now. People are tired of being inside. They need to go out. They want to go out. They have to be careful. But the strong within will survive. And I think this is what we're seeing now. And we're going to live with this. We have to live with this till a vaccination becomes available, hopefully soon. Okay, that's all I want to say about this.
I want to bring up a point that we spoke about earlier on, give an example of New Zealand and maybe the example of Thailand. Why has New Zealand done so well? We don't know, but there are a few things that may be playing into their benefit. If you can recall, there was a mass shooting in New Zealand maybe a year ago, and their leader gained a lot of recognition and in how she dealt with the situation. And now comes the pandemic, and then she comes and speaks to people again. We need to do this, and we need to do that, and we need to do that. and her words carried a lot of weight, and people followed what she suggested. I know that because I have family in New Zealand. I have students that doctors that are trained who are practicing in Hong Kong, and I spoke to them and said, "So how are you guys managing it?" They told me, "Well, we had SARS and it hit us really hard, so we had ingrained in our mind how to physically distance, wash our hands, do all those hygiene things that are being suggested that to the rest of us is new. They've been doing this all the time, so it was easy for them to do that now." I think pills and PPEs can go so far. It's about time that we emphasize the individual responsibility. I mean, we see YouTube videos of people telling us, "I have Jesus Christ and I'm a Christian, so this thing cannot affect me." Yes, please help Jesus Christ put on the mask. So we need to emphasize those things, that it's an individual responsibility, that the government can do it for us. They can't legislate this. And it comes down to the individual trying to do the things that they need to do so we don't have to spend a whole millions of dollars to take care of this pandemic. It's going to be with us. It's going to be with us for a long time.
Thank you, Dr. Boahene. Ms. Irene Horsham, as a follow-up to Dr. Boahene's summation, what is your view on this particular?
In relation to individual responsibility?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. So as I said before, what I have been impressed with is actually individual responses. You would definitely have the odd people who do not follow the directives that have been given to government. But in general, people, especially when the president comes out in the evening and speaks and he's shown great leadership, whatever points he makes, people generally listen. And I've actually been quite impressed, especially when I was concerned with the language that was being used for instruction. So a lot of the language was English, but the majority of our people speak in local languages and dialects. And my main concern was, how are we actually going to get this message out to individuals using the English language? Whereas we know even they can't even say coronavirus, or they can't say, COVID-19, or all the things we're saying, social distancing. These are words in English that, to be honest, if you ask me how to say social distancing in Tree, I'm going to struggle. But interestingly, individuals out in the towns, out in the villages, have paid attention to their local leaders, the local chiefs, the church pastors. And so what we found is that if we use our local leadership systems and our local cultural systems, we get the message to the people quicker, and they listen to their, Ebusiapenyu for more than they would listen to, say, the minister. The general message comes from the minister, but it's how we get it into society and into the system. So I've been quite impressed by the individual responses, and especially by the local leadership. Where it becomes dangerous is where the local leaderships themselves take an irresponsible view and say things like Dr. Jess said, I have Jesus Christ, and so nothing can touch me. It is then that it becomes dangerous, because people then emulate what they're saying. But overall, I think the Ghanaian people have genuinely been very good. They really pay attention. The use of masks is being used across board, and the hand washing, Veronica buckets everywhere. So I like seeing us using our own local initiatives, trying to get innovative with our ideas, so that if we don't have running water, we know that if we put something in a Veronica bucket and place it outside with soap, hand sanitizer use has gone up so much that it's become standard. And I believe that when we do return to our new normal, hand sanitizers will become a normal thing. I don't think it's going to go away. Hand washing will not go away. And I remember reading and quite fascinated about how hand washing became a normal thing. I think this was from 100 years ago with the initial flu pandemic, when hand washing wasn't actually part of our daily lives. But, we all grew up knowing you wash your hands after everything, not realizing that wasn't the case before. It took a pandemic for hand washing to become standard. And I think it will take this pandemic for, a new set of behaviors to stay. And I think, things like distancing at funerals or numbers at weddings, that I think is going to change. Our way of life is going to change. Our use of technology is going to change. We're not going to go back. And I love how we are so adaptable and we're so versatile. It's a shame that it has to take a pandemic, but I think once this has hit us and we've realized how our own individual behaviors can change, I think, we're headed somewhere and there are great opportunities ahead for us.
Good.
Thank you, Ms. Irene. Horsham, when His Excellency Dr. Mike Oquaye was giving us a little, a breathe out on his take on the economy, he made it clear that the GDP growth from Ghana has actually plummeted all the way from a target of 6.8% to 2.6%. And we understand that the government is doing a lot to put the economy to where it's supposed to be. Now, from the perspective of my panelists, looking at where economy is right now, there are so many varied areas. We have healthcare, we have education, we have tourism, name it. It's all across the board. In your own view, what do you think will be some of the steps that it's an idea you want to share, it's a view you want to share, that the government can also add to its own repertoire of things it's doing to get Ghana to where it's going? Because Dr. Michael Quay made us aware that you're looking for certain ideas from individuals as to how we can also help jumpstart the economy. So in your own view, what do you think? And I think probably Dr. Ben Sarkodie, you want to start with this one? You want to take it up? It looks like we lost, let's see, Dr. Boahene. Let's get Dr. Boahene back.
Okay.
Boahene, you want to take it up?
Sure. So if I go back to the analogy I was giving about a stress test, if you fail a stress test, you have a few things to do. Either you said, forget it, I'm going to keep doing the things that I always do, you're going to get a heart attack.
Right.
But if you are prudent, you're going to make some changes. Changes in lifestyle, build the capacity of your heart, and really have a different mindset. So if I put it in those terms, what can we do as far as the economy? Number one, we need to look internally because the external world is shut off right now. We need to look internally and reimagine our society and build our capacity from within out. I have something I talk about DNA. We need to develop ourselves, nurture the people that we have, and then attract our capacity. Sitting on this panel are people from Ghanaians working outside. There's so much capacity outside. There's so much capacity within the country. We need to develop the people who are in that country, nurture them so they don't leave, make it attractive for them to stay, and then do things to attract people from outside to bring them in. That's number one. Number two, we need to take this period that the outside world is closed to set certain things right. If you want to attract someone from outside and have them come home and contribute, if I may borrow this word, make it easy for them to come. They already want to come. I want to go to my in-laws' house and the wind is blowing in that direction. I don't need a lot of convincing. But let's say if I want to come and, let me use this example. I need a land and I'm tied to land. If I have land, I know I'm really tied to this place, but it takes me 5 years to register a land. 5 years I don't have, right? So we need to interrogate the processes that we do, everything. Anything that wastes time, we should find a way to eliminate. These things don't take money. So we need to interrogate our systems, correct and make them efficient. So build our capacity at home, nurture them, attract a capacity from outside, make sure we interrogate all our systems, get rid of things that really waste time. That is what we can do now. Then we have to reimagine when the world opens up, are we going to be ready? The example of Amazon and Walmart, big companies in the US, when everybody was laying people off, Amazon and Walmart were hiring people. Why? Because they were prepared for the online world, just like one of our panelists mentioned. So when things shut down, they were ready. And Amazon has blown up, Walmart is blowing out, right? So can we imagine that this pandemic is with us now? It may abate, it may come back, but what can we do to be prepared, reimagine our society so we'll be ready for the next one, or we can take advantage? Can we insert ourselves in the global supply chain system? Why does everything go to China? Is it because they have the know-how, or they have cheap labor, or you just have a lot of people? We should be looking at ways that we can insert ourselves in that supply chain. I'm in healthcare, so I can talk about healthcare. Okay, can Ghana become the hub for high-end healthcare for the West African region, and not South Africa, and not India? Can we do that? I think we can. We have the manpower to do so. And how do we do that? I don't think we have to rely so much on the government. I think we have to rely on individuals. I have this thing that I say, there are so many memorial clinics and memorial hospitals in Ghana. When the person is dead, that place is gone. We should stop those memorial hospitals, memorial clinics. We should see doctor groups, private doctors groups come together with their expertise and build institutions that last beyond ourselves. That's how we can build on and bring the next Mayo Clinic, the next University of Düsseldorf, the next Johns Hopkins into Ghana. That's how it actually started. I trained at Mayo Clinic. It was a father, his son, who invited their friend and their brother, and it became this world-renowned institution. But the practice in Ghana is there's one individual, they want their own business, and their name is on it. When they get to a point that they can't practice anymore, it goes away. Memorial clinics, memorial hospitals, memorial institutions, we need to move beyond that.
Oh, Dr. Boahene, that is a powerful statement right there. Dr. Sarkodie, thanks for coming back. So the question was looking at the current situation that we find in vis-a-vis where individuals can help the government to get to where it's supposed to be. Our point is, what can we do to help the government lift up the economic situation from your own perspective?
Okay, so I think first of all, one of the panelists already mentioned that it is important that we as individuals, we as Ghanaians become responsible by preventing the spread of this infection. Government has already outlined policies or policy direction to help us. One of the things, as we all know, is social distancing. We have banned large gatherings, we have banned large funerals, bars were closed, schools are still closed, most of them. It's important that we follow some of these social distancing protocols. And then also it's important that for people who are sick, they stay home or they self-isolate so that they don't mix up with the rest of the population and end up reinfecting other people. Government has also restricted travel into the country. As we know, our borders, our airports are still shut, which means that we are not going to be importing the viruses at this time. It is also important that we have in place good behavioral modifications. We have said that it is important to wear masks. It is important to wash our hands. But beyond that, it is also important for us to build our immune system to be able to withstand the effects of this virus. It's important that we take our multivitamins. It's important that we take our zinc tablets, we eat well, we exercise, so that our immune system is better prepared in the event that this infection comes close to us. Also, we should not deceive ourselves that this is over. Like you said, people are already getting into their comfort zones. You go to certain places where Veronica buckets are provided for people to do hand washing, and people are bypassing the process because already people are thinking that this is vanishing. For us who sit in the hospitals on a daily basis, we are seeing people with new infections. And so we don't think that this is going away anytime soon, but these are some of the things that we can do as individuals to help ourselves and also help the government to ensure that the spread of this virus is kept.
Thank you, Dr. Sarkodie. I'm going to open up the platform for some questions. Mr. Kwame Boakye-Danquah has a question for all the panelists.
Hello. Issue of my question goes to Professor Michael Oquaye.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes,
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, my question goes to Professor Michael Oquaye. And thank you for such a wonderful gathering. And we are here to transform Ghana. Yeah, my Prof, Dr. Ambassador Michael Oquaye, I mean, what is the most important thing for African decision makers and community leaders to do during and after this pandemic? I mean, in your own take, what do you think? I mean, just want you to elaborate on it.
Let's start by looking at this in terms of policy initiatives, because invariably governments have to come together and make decisions for the general population. But as much as they would want to talk about coronavirus protocols, I think that we need to look at how this is affecting us financially. And let me even start by saying this, because it's very important that it is very unfortunate that we've had quite a few deaths. And we all remember what the president said, that what we don't know how to do is to bring people back to life, but what we can look at is to bring the economy back to life. And in view of this, the government of Ghana in particular is preparing a 3-year post-COVID-19 recovery plan under the mandate of the Ministry of Finance. And of course, I don't intend to preempt what the government would like to do in terms of the full recovery, but I would also want to share a few thoughts and opinions as to some of the things that we would want to see. First of all, we must find a vaccine for the coronavirus. This is imperative. I know that there's a world race in doing that, but Ghana is also involved. If you recently listened to the Noguchi heads, we've already separated the strains and the virus, and we're looking at ways to also get into this. I'm sure the doctors will be able to even tell us more as to what Ghana is trying to do with that regard. But focusing also on the economic impact matters associated with this forum's discussion. We have to understand that we need to enhance our healthcare. The government of Ghana has said they are going to build 88 district hospitals and 6 regional hospitals to enhance this area. So this is a policy that governments across the world, and especially in Africa, must also follow. Because as you said, with regard to the moderator earlier, Africa, the situation is getting worse. And so we need to get ready to be able to deal with anything that will happen. We also need to ensure economic sustainability and continuity, because if we can't sustain where we are at the moment, it will be very difficult to continue. And we must have policy interventions to prioritize the protection of jobs and investment. We must also reduce the accumulation of the economic scar tissue from this disease. The establishment also in Ghana of what we call the Coronavirus Alleviation Program is one of the important policy decisions that would ensure that we have this sustainability and continuity. We also need to be able to stretch the government fiscal space. And it is important that the government fiscal space is elastic enough for the government to be able to stay current on the multi-sectorial demands, as well as scale up attention for fighting the pandemic and ensuring economic recovery. This is very, very crucial. Now, also, we need to check on things like fund deferment of, in terms of interest payments, make sure that we check our deferment, because if we keep deferring, most of the funds, especially the Exim banks, who have lent to the economy will not be excited about lending money to Ghana in future. We also need to be able to further secure the IMF Rapid Credit Facility. This expenditure realignment is something that will help us in terms of recovery in our economy. Now, we also need industrial manufacturing and digital revolution. Very important area. If we are to strengthen Ghana's economy, we need to have a concerted effort for a long to medium term strategy and have a revolution in this area. This means that we need to, for example, increase the ease of doing business and improve investment policy for rapid domestic investment. Co-terminously, we also have to develop digital solution and mainstream Internet of Things into our economic policy. And this will be an opportunity Ghana will be able to take advantage of. So, for example, Ghana needs to go big time into the area of big data. Ghana needs to look at machine learning, robotics, especially in the area of geospatial technology and science. Ghana would have to rapidly develop in these areas so we can take advantage of this situation, not only in Ghana and Africa, but also worldwide. So Ghana will be known as a technology hub. One of the things we've noticed is, for example, you know that Ghana, Google has the Artificial Intelligence Center in Ghana. This is to inform the international community who are listening to look at Ghana as one of the ways for this. Ghana also needs to go into resource mobilization and management, because at the core of economic recovery is the resource of mobilization and utilization. And we all know that one of the biggest banes of Africa is our tax to GDP. I mean, in Africa, this is a very small marginal increase in the last 10 years of an average of about 2%. And in Ghana, we have been able to just do about 11% of GDP in taxes. So it is my view that the government should be able to close all the various tax loopholes, especially at a time like this, and technology will play a very big part. Furthermore, we need to look at areas of national identification and property addressing system. This is something that the government is doing at the moment. About 10 million people have already gone through the national identification process. We are all also aware of the GPS system for the property addressing system. This is going to help. But for the lack of time, let me lastly look at government being able to improve effectiveness and transparency. Because basically, what the government needs to do and understand is the more transparent that the government is, we will be able to look into the various areas like sharing ideas with the people of Ghana. They would be able to help us. All the eminent doctors and various business entrepreneurs will need to also play a part, but we need to be able to give them the forum from which they would be able to advise us accordingly into practical ways where we can affect the livelihoods and the economy of people. Of course, we know that in areas like education, from the 15th of June to now experience what we call social distancing in exams, social distancing in dormitories, in boarding schools, and so on and so forth, which in itself is going to be very difficult, because how would you be able to maximize under such circumstances? So this is an area that we need to also be able to advise ourselves. So in conclusion, we can see that the impact of COVID-19 on the various aspects of our society, whether it's religion, whether it's education, whether it's a social, or most importantly, economic, is something that we would have to have a mishmash of government policy and behavior of citizens to be able to solve this problem. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Dr. Michael Oquaye. We have Mr. Silas Soros. You have a question for all the panelists. So you, let's unmute you and you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope you can hear me, please.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm Silas from Ghana, medical laboratory scientist. Actually, it looks like COVID-19 at the moment, we have to try to live with it. So like malaria in Ghana, for instance, we say that we should have treated bed nets, and then we should probably have mosquito coils or spray our rooms or something like that. But now, coming to COVID-19, we have the social distancing, the nose masks, and then all of that. But now, coming to the nose masks, there's been news recently on the fact that people who are asymptomatic, who are COVID-19 positive, but then are asymptomatic, cannot on the virus to somebody else, so they cannot transmit it. Having professionals in the health sector of this cadre in this meeting, I felt like it was important that I put it across, so you also share your thoughts on it so that we know what the case really is. Thank you very much. So this is what I wish to, get to know about.
Thank you, Mr. Soros. To our panelists, who wants to take it?
Let me try this.
Can I take that? All right. Okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so it's raised a very interesting point about the asymptomatic individuals and how they might spread it. Actually, it's not really true. Not entirely true. Basically, I think if you're asymptomatic, it's very mild. So it seems like you have a very low titer level of the virus. So maybe the amount of virus that comes out compared to someone who's had really a full dose of the infection is going to be very low. So this does not mean that just that the viral titer is low. So the chances, if you have your 2 meter separation, the chances are much lower to be infected by someone who's asymptomatic compared to someone who's fully blown. So I would not believe or think that if you are asymptomatic, you're not going to infect anyone. That's not true.
Let me chime in on that. Yeah. So, science and statistics is not 100% accurate all the time. And sometimes the data that goes out there, another study we done that refused the first one. So sometimes we have to bring logic to decision making. So if someone tells you that someone is asymptomatic and doesn't affect people that much, in practice, what does that mean? Does that mean that now you can walk around without a mask? Do you want to take that chance? Right? The person who came out and said that asymptomatic people don't transmit so much, the next day the WHO came and had to walk that back. Early on, if you recall, in the US, CDC said, we don't need to put on a mask. We should reserve it for the healthcare workers. Now, later on, we said everybody should put on a mask. And I can tell you that if we had implemented putting on masks early on, at least in the US, the numbers may have been different. So I wouldn't suggest we play that game about asymptomatic and transmission. This is an airborne disease. If you get enough viral load into your lungs and your immune system is not strong enough to curtail it in the beginning and the virus takes hold, you are going to get sick. And then you're going to have a protracted fight between your immune system and the virus, and one is going to win. You hope it's you. The thing that we have to our advantage is that in Ghana, we have young people, healthy people, hopefully strong immune system, and we can withstand some of these. So to answer your question, if you have the virus and you cough and it's in a droplet, it can cross. And if you inhale it, it can take hold. If the viral load is high, you can get infected.
Let me just add that it is important that we verify the source of any information we get on COVID-19. There's been a lot of information on WhatsApp and other social media platforms, and a lot of the information are yet to be verified. So I advise that people look for credible sources like the WHO, like the CDC, and other major players in the healthcare industry, rather than just relying on information from just any source.
Thank you. We have Mr. Kweku Abwaji. You have a question for Ambassador Mike Oquaye.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Financial data analyst from Thomson Reuters. And basically, my question to His Excellency Michael Oquaye is, what disposition do you does the government of Ghana have for primary and informal sector in terms of economic empowerment? Because it's really important that we look into our informal and also our primary sector. So that's the question. That's my first question.
Whilst we're waiting for Ambassador Oquaye, there's another question for same for Ambassador Oquaye, but I'm going to move ahead. And this is for everybody on our panel. He says, what therapeutics are being utilized to manage COVID-19 in Ghana? Are clinicians also able to utilize convalescent plasma for therapy, since we have greater than 3,000 patients who have recovered? And do we have the ability to produce this? This question is for all our panelists. So who wants to take it first?
Our medic in Ghana.
Yes.
Actually, I was going to say, suggest the medic in Ghana who sees such as seeing patients.
Yeah. So first of all, I think my question to the question is, do we have any cure for this disease? No. But we do have a lot of medications that help in situations like this when people become infected. In Ghana, mostly we are still using the hydroxychloroquine and Zithromax or azithromycin. There have also been a few cases where they've used the remdesivir, but not a lot of it. And so, and again, we know that 90% of our patients in Ghana are actually asymptomatic. And for those ones, we don't have to do much except to give them immune boosters. But these are the main things that we use. In terms of the plasma, I have heard from Dr. Owu, who is one of the lead people in management, that they are close to the point where they are extracting plasma to be used for treatment of patients. But currently, we are not using this technology. However, they say that they are very close to using it.
Well, our experience in the US, I think the question pertained to Ghana. The use of plasma, convalescent plasma, is being used in the US, but it's very selective. All other measures are being used before then. Back to the experience in Ghana, I mean, there's been a lot of talk and studies that are showing whether there really is any benefit from the use of hydroxychloroquine. And so it's interesting to see that Ghana still uses it. And I'm not sure if you can comment on that.
Yeah, so it's still being used. The problem is that, as we all know, the issues with arrhythmias, QT prolongations, and all of that. So we monitor people who are on it. But it is our main protocol, and I think about 10 countries or so in the world are using this protocol, where they use hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. So that is the main thing we're using here in Ghana.
Okay. Let's take two more questions. And this question is for all the panelists. It says COVID-19 has exposed our technology used within our educational sector, especially the tertiary. University administration and students struggle with the usage of Zoom and other platforms as a medium for teaching and learning. after COVID-19 is the educational ministry, thinking about digitizing our teaching and learning like what is done abroad, even if it's a pilot, until we get there? That's the question.
Okay, since I'm in the education sector, I think it might be a good idea if I take this one. So earlier I mentioned that we had an issue, or what I called problems with our systems anyway, and the solution had been staring at us this whole time. And that solution lay in technology. Now, what has happened with the tertiary systems is really down to what the institutions can afford, more so than what is available out there. So there is a lot of use of Zoom out there. It is not the most effective way, but then the evidence has shown that the only reason why that is what is available now is because that is what is affordable now. What I know is that several institutions are now investing into technology, but the education sector has another layer. It's a very conservative sector. And up until now, use of technology in teaching wasn't actually encouraged. And so in order to use or to go into sort of distance learning mode, you needed specific accreditation to do that. And the majority of our institutions are actually not accredited for distance learning. So this is a new thing for most of us, going into using technology and virtual learning. And it's an experience that the students are learning from, management are learning from, staff are learning from, lecturers are learning from. And I foresee that this is actually going to be integrated in the future, that we might not go towards distance learning completely, but we will have a mix of the two. We're going to have combined learning. I'll be surprised if after COVID, our education sector actually abandons the use of technology. If anything, is going to get better. So I believe that the education sector is going to get better. But I have a caveat here. And what I feel is that the use of technology has shown or has revealed that there is a big danger of creating a system of inequality, so that access to education is actually now going to become a problem. Because if we use technology, what we'll find is that it is people who can afford the mode of technology who would actually benefit from it. And we have seen it in our practice where you're doing online exams and people just have to submit it. And we're used to a system where you click a button and it goes. But then in reality, you have a student who is clicking that button and the lights go off, or the internet cuts out and they're not able to submit. So that is a real practical issue that is not actually from the education sector, but is in the wider Ghanaian system. Do we have the power for it? Do we have the internet for it? And even worse, when you go into the rural areas, you will find that they don't even have the devices to access it. So with what government is doing, my fear is that the policy making is then, and His Excellency had mentioned that the government is moving rapidly to bring in technology. And the rapid movement is what creates my discomfort, because it's rapid and it's needed, but is it universal? Is everybody going to have access to this rapid movement? Yes, those of us in Accra will have it, Kumasi will have it, but what about somebody in, Latte, where I come from? Are they going to have the same access? So my thought is that the policymakers actually have to get on board with the universities and go at the same pace. Because if the universities are bringing in the technology and the policymakers are not catching up, so that you'd have, say, free SHS, and it's a wonderful policy, people are going to come out, and then once they come out, then what happens? Where are they going to go? How are they going to access the education that the universities are putting in place? So we have to actually work together so that we work at a pace where access is universal and nobody's left behind. Because the danger with technology is those who catch on to it will fly, and those who don't will be worse off than they were before COVID. And that's not what we don't want that to happen. But the students who are at home now, those with technology are carrying on with education, those without have had none at all. So that's where government really needs to move away from the linear way of making policies and have a more systems way, work with everybody together to create that universal access for everybody using technology. So that's my answer to the question.
Very good. We have a question. Actually, it's a point from Mr. Owusu, who is a participant on the platform. He says several studies have shown hydrochloroquine is ineffective and may be detrimental. So we should probably focus on evidence-based treatment options. At this point, remdesivir is the only medication that has shown somewhat effect. He's making a point. What do you all think?
Well, I think he has a point, but we do know that countries like China and other countries have also come out with the benefits of hydroxychloroquine. And like I said earlier, there are about 10 countries who were doing a study where they were using hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin to treat people. And they have also said they are getting wonderful results. The downside is that we all know the side effects of hydroxychloroquine. And in the absence of, until recently, we didn't even have remdesivir in the country. So that was the only thing we could use. Now we have that as well. So I agree with this point, but I don't think it's entirely and completely true, because other people have also come out with a counter argument that they have also seen benefits with it. So as it stands now, I think that it's a gray area.
Can I contribute to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's absolutely true that, two major studies were retracted, right? Lancet and the other, New England Journal of Medicine. Yeah, so I think, in my opinion, I think it's also the dosing. And I think maybe one has to look also at the genetic background of the individual, the people you're treating. So we talk about Ghana, and I believe chloroquine has been there for a very long time.
Yes.
And also, if we look now how we metabolize drugs, it could be that if you compare Caucasian to an African, that we metabolize drugs differently because we have all these different variants of this enzyme CYP2D6. So it could be that we actually in Africa, in Ghana, maybe can tolerate this medication much better than a Caucasian due to the genetic background and also the dosing effect. I mean, I think some of those publications, the doses they were using, I mean, this was on a platform in LinkedIn, so this discussion came up with Professor Dedo as well involved in that. And basically what he said was the dose they were prescribing there is much higher than the dose they would use in Ghana, for instance. So I think it's really, one has to take all this with a pinch of salt. It's ethnicity, background, genetic background also plays a role. And if it actually works in Ghana with the dose that you're using, why not? Of course, we know there are side effects. But at the end of the day, if this is showing beneficial effects in a particular region, why abandon it?
Dr. Boahene, what's your
this
take
is
on
what
this?
I would like to comment on.
Could you repeat
Sorry?
the question?
What is your take on this point by
I don't have a first-hand experience with it. Johns Hopkins, I don't think it's one of the mainstays. The antiviral medication is a new thing, and I don't think it's broadly available. Right now, the mainstay of treatment is supportive care. I think we've increasingly known that there are a lot of hematologic side effects, and there's been a lot of emphasis on trying to minimize those hematologic side effects. So in Ghana, if they have good experience with hydroxychloroquine and they are monitoring the side effects, I think it's something that they can get and gather data, and that data will become an important source in this conversation.
Thank you all so much for your input and for all your valuable knowledge and expertise on these very important questions. At this point in time, I would call on the president and the founder of Ghana Advocacy Group, Global Forum, Mr. Kwame Boakye-Danquah, to come up.
Thank you, Dr. Ampomah. I have to say this has been a big success too. I mean, this has been a maiden program. How far we've done and then what we've done so far, it's been wonderful. But I just want to say a big thank you to all the panelists, especially Dr. Kofi Boahene. He's such a busy man. I mean, having him on the program is a big deal to me. It means a lot to me. For him to accept this is a wonderful thing. Dr. Sarkodie is another big deal, trust me. I mean, this man is so dear to my heart. He accepted the invitation willingly, and it means a lot to me. Also, Irene, who is the Deputy Rector in Ghana. Irene, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Ghana Advocacy Group, which you are all a member of, we do appreciate you. That means that Kofi, thank you for being part of this program. It's such a wonderful thing having you on board. And last but not the least, Professor James Adjaye. This is a man to know. He's a great guy. Prof, we always appreciate you for being part of this program. This is Ghana Advocacy Platform. It's called GAG Global Platform. We do appreciate Ghana Advocacy rocks, all the members rock, especially every member of Ghana Advocacy. We love you, and God bless you. Dr. Ampomah, you are such a great guy. I mean, you're always part of us, and we love you for being a co-presenter. We thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We love you. God bless you all. God bless you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.